Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. So beautiful. So beautiful to see these videos at the beginning of our program at the Prabhupada Disciples Association, and the success, the great success that our Guru Maharaj had in preaching Krishna consciousness in the early years of 1965, 66, 67, which we've been reading about in his diaries, which are an authentic description from him on his journey of preaching around the world, because it started in New York, but it progressed very quickly. Prabhupada was extremely ambitious to bring people to Krishna consciousness for a few reasons, one being his age, because age is a factor in everyone's journey in life. No matter who you are, you have to go through this journey of transmigration of the soul, birth, growth, duration, byproducts, deterioration, and death. This is a system of change. Dehi noshmin yata dehi, komaran yovanam jara, from boyhood to youth to old age and to death. So this is the reality of material life. People in this society, in the modern world, they have no idea who they are. None. They have no idea where they're going in terms of transmigration of the soul. They have no idea of the afterlife. They have some speculation or some belief, but no transcendental realization of this fact that we are in the prison house of the material world and the material body. So if you go on the street, if the police stop you on the street, they ask you, oh, where are you from? I don't know. Where do you live? I don't have a place. Where are you going? I'm not sure. Then Prabhupada uses that example to say, well, you're going to be certified as unbalanced or more or less crazy. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't know what your purpose in life is, you don't know where you're going, you have no idea, then in the material society, you're considered to be unbalanced, not really a productive member of society. So the human birth is an opportunity for us, everyone, especially in the Prabhupada Disciples Association. This association is committed to preserving Prabhupada's legacy on 3 different levels. The first one is his books. We are committed to the preservation of his unadulterated, unedited books, because they contain the information for all humanity, how to get out of this material world, how to find your way. It's a roadmap to spiritual understanding and spiritual emancipation. And then we're also committed to maintaining the position that Prabhupada is living in sound with us in his Vani incarnation. Bhakti Yoga is a spiritual science. It's not a science of belief oh, I believe this, I believe that. It is a spiritual science based on transcendental sound vibration coming from the lips of a pure devotee. And Prabhupada, without question, is Uttama-Ācārya. There's so many people posing as guru, manufacturing philosophy to justify their desires for a guru business. This is not a good thing. And this is misleading people on the path back home, back to Godhead. So we are vehemently opposed to that. Vehemently, because it's against the principles of Guru Tattva of truth. And thirdly, we don't agree with how Prabhupada's movement is being managed by a centralized board of directors, whether it be on the global platform or on the local platform, where most temples in his movement are managed by a board of directors, most of them part-time. This is complete garbage, manufactured garbage. So this particular platform that we've taken is something that we want to make sure everybody understands, that comes to our program, that we are definitely on a different path as a group of Prabhupada disciples. And we are very much interested in studying his life in detail. That detailed information, right from his birth in 1896 up to his departure in November of 1977. We should study all the different aspects, and we're doing that in the Prabhupada Disciples Association weekly meetings. We've been reading from the diaries of Śrīla Prabhupāda, which are very, very enlightening. And right now we're at a section at the end of the beginnings. That's here's the beginnings. And we're at the end of it. I thought this reading today, I had a chance to review it before the class and discussion and reading this morning. I thought it was very inspiring. And I was going to read forward, but I thought, let's take a small chunk of this information and digest it carefully. Excerpt from a letter to Bhaktivedanta Dāsa, written in September 9th, 1976. So Prabhupada's been moving along. He had just been in Toronto, actually, everyone, in July of 76 when we opened the Toronto temple, and he blessed us with his association for 4 days. It was quite memorable, I must say, for all of us who served in the Toronto temple. Prabhupada, New York is very much attractive for me because New York is the starting place of my activities in your country. And when I had no place of preaching, one American gentleman offered me a 2-stoned building in Brooklyn with a nice hall downstairs for only $125 per month. But at that time, I was paying only $70 for my apartment, and I could not bear at that time to pay $125. The situation continued for at least 1 year, and then I was bold enough to accept an apartment for $200. In this way, the society extended with so many branches, and now you are paying $14.50 per month, so it is very encouraging. I thank you very much that you have already allotted a nice apartment for me, an entire first floor, so if I had the wings of a dove, I could fly immediately to Brooklyn and enter my apartment. Anyway, in future, I wish to go there for the time being, keep it nicely. By the grace of Krishna, wherever I go, you, all my disciples, give me a very nice place for residing. And in Calcutta, also Śrīmad-Achyutananda and Śrīmad Jayapataka, who are going to be sannyasis tomorrow, they have given me a very nice apartment. I just wanted to comment. When Prabhupada came to Toronto, by the way, we had a special section at the side of the temple. It's a 25,000 square foot building. So there was a minister's quarters at the east end of the building. And we were excited to make all these preparations, in preparation for Prabhupada. So everybody was on a complete marathon of activity. And then when Prabhupada came, we took him to his quarters. I believe it was on a Thursday. And anyway, that night I was called to by Hare Krishna to discuss Prabhupada's accommodations. And he said, oh, everything that you've done, Prabhupada wants it changed. Everything we did was wrong. And so we changed the seating arrangements and the desk like that to prepare Prabhupada's room properly. And the next day I went to Prabhupada in his room and I had a darshan with him and I apologized. I said, Prabhupada, we apologize so sincerely for making a mistake on your accommodations we made. We didn't know what to do. And Prabhupada looked at me and goes, that's okay. And we made the adjustments. So Prabhupada liked to sit on a sauna on the floor, and we cut the desk and cut the legs off and brought it down to a low level, like a traditional situation in India. So very interesting. And Prabhupada was very forgiving and appreciative of everything that we had done to give this magnificent building for him in the heart of downtown Toronto, up from the Parliament buildings. So Prabhupada mentions here, so I'm now 75 years old. I never thought how far I shall be able to travel for such a long distance. But as people say, I'm still younger. Then maybe sooner or later, I shall come back to New York again. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda and the Sankirtan movement and all the committed members of the Prabhupada Disciples Association who are consistently attending our programs during the week to keep their Krishna consciousness at the highest level.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Founder-Ācārya Jaya Radha Madhava Founder-Ācārya Jaya Muspat Paramahansa Parivrajaga-Acārya Sattare Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Saraswati Goswami Prabhupāda ki jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai Nāma-Acārya Śrī Haridas Thakur ki jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Śrī Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai Śrī Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Khanda Radha Khanda Giridharan ki jai Vrindavan Dham ki jai Navadvip Dham ki jai Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Guru Dwarka Dham ki jai, Swami Bhaktivedanta ki jai, all glories to their Summit. All glories to their Summit. Thank you very much.
All glories to you, Śrīla Prabhupāda. All glories to you, Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I do offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya Narayanam namaskritya Naram cheva narottamam Naram cheva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayam mudirayat Tato jayam mudirayat. One should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Śrīla Vyasadeva, the author. So welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. As we do every time we have those weekend reading on Sundays, we will read a few verses from the Canto 1, Chapter 2, describing the benefits and the effects of hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We'll be reading from Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 14. Tasmadikena manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Patihi Shrotavyaha Kirtitavyascha Dhyeya Pujyascha Nityada. Therefore, the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees, must be always heard of, glorified, remembered, and worshipped with one attention. Text number 15. Yadanudhyasina yuktaha karma granti nibandanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryad gataratim. Intelligent persons do cut off the internet of the knot of reactionary work by remembrance of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not give attention to his message? Text number 16. Shushrushuhu shraddhadanasya vasudeva kataruchihi syan mahat sevaya vipraha punyatirtha nishevanat. O the twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all ranges of vice, a standard of great service is done, and as the result of such great service, affinity in the messages of Vasudeva is made possible. Text number 17. Shrinvatam svakata Krishnaha punyashravana kirtanaha Hridantastoya badrani vidunoti suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayeshu vabhadrishu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, comes into being an irrevocable fact. Text 19. Tadarajastamo bhavaha kama lobhadayaschaye Chetayete ranaviddham stitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is fixed up in one's heart, at that time the effect of the nature's mode of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankerings, do disappear from one's heart, and he becomes fixed up in the mode of goodness, which makes him completely happy. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, when one is positively fixed up in a mode of unalloyed goodness, the enlivened-minded man, affected by contact of devotional service of the Lord, can positively know scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Again, welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It should be noted that all English synonyms, translations, and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. It should be noted we are reading from the original 1962 New Delhi edition. We are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 3, text number 34. Yadyesho uparata devi maya vesharati matihi sampanna evaitir vidur mahimni sve mahiyate yadi. If, however, esha de uparata subsided, maya energy, vesharadi full of knowledge, matihi enlightenment, sampanna enriched with, eva certainly, iti thus, vidu being cognizant of, mahimni in the glories, sve of self, mahiyati being situated in. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. If, however, the illusory energy is subsided and becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then the living being becomes at once enlightened with self-realization, and thus enriched, the cognizant becomes situated in his own glory. Purport. The Lord being the absolute transcendence, all his forms, names, pastimes, attributes, associates, and energies are identical with him. His transcendental energy acts according to his omnipotency. The same energy acts as his external, internal, and marginal energies, and by his omnipotency he can act anything and everything through the agency of either of the above energies. He is omnipotent to turn the external energy into internal by his will. Therefore, by his grace, the external energy which is employed in the matter of illusioning those living beings who want to have it is subsided by the will of the Lord in terms of repentance and penance of the conditioned soul. And the very same energy then acts to help the purified living being to make progress on the path of self-realization. The example of electrical energy is very appropriate in this connection. The expert electrician can utilize the electrical energy in both the case of heating and cooling process by adjustment only. Similarly, the external energy which now bewilders the living being for continuation of repetition of birth and death is turned into internal potency by the will of the Lord to lead the living being to eternal life. When a living being is thus graced by the Lord, he is placed in his proper constitutional position to enjoy eternal spiritual life. Text 35. Evam janmani karamani yakartura janasya cha varnayanti smakavayo veda gohyani ritpatehe. Evam, thus, jadmani, birth, karmani, activities, he certainly, akartur, of the non-active, ajanasya, of the unborn, cha, and varnayanti, do describe, sma, in the past, kavayo, the learned, veda gohyani, undiscoverable by the Vedas, ritpate, of the Lord of the heart. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Thus, the learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and non-active, which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures. He is the Lord of the heart. Purport. Both the Lord and the living entities are essentially all spiritual, and therefore both of them are eternal, and none of them have any birth and death. The difference is that the so-called births and deaths of the Lord are not equal to that of the living beings. The living beings who are to take birth and then again accept death are so bound up by the law of material nature. But the so-called appearance and disappearance of the Lord are not the actions of the material nature, but they are demonstration of the internal potency of the Lord. It is described by the great sages for the same purpose as self-realization. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita by the Lord that his so-called birth in the material world and his activities are all transcendental. And simply on meditations on such activities of the Lord, one can attain the same realization of Brahman and thus become liberated from the material bondage. In the Shrutis, it is said that the birthless appears as taking birth. The Supreme has nothing to do, but because he is omnipotent, everything is performed by him so naturally as if they are being done automatically. As a matter of fact, the appearance and disappearance of the personality of Godhead and his different activities are all confidential, even to the Vedic literatures. But still, they are displayed by the Lord for bestowing mercy upon the conditioned souls. We should always take advantage of such narration of the activities of the Lord and take advantage of meditation on Brahma in the most convenient and palatable form. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, Śrīla Prabhupāda, who has opened our eyes from the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataha Adadana Danter Idam Yache Punaha Punaha Śrīmad Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunata Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunata Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So these are very important points that are raised by Sutta Goswami with regards to the appearance of the personality of Godhead and how one can understand those transcendental activities. It's important to understand that in the material world, the living entities are subjected to the influence of Maya, the illusory energy. Maya Dyakshena Prakritihi Suyase Characharam, Sacharacharam. That all living entities are subjected to the influence of this material energy. This is called samsara, the cycle of birth and death. And in order to get relief from this situation, from this troublesome situation, one has to understand from a bona fide acharya, bona fide authorized acharya. Śrīla Prabhupada describes throughout his books how to get relief from this situation. Prabhupada nicely writes in his purport, the same energy acts as his external, internal, and marginal energies, and by his omnipotency, he can act anything and everything through the agency of either of the above energies. He is omnipotent to turn the external energy into internal by his will. Therefore, by his grace, the external energy which is employed in the matter of illusioning those living beings who want to have it is subsided by the will of the Lord in terms of repentance and penance of the conditioned soul. And the very same energy then acts to help the purified living being to make progress on the path of self-realization. It's important to note when we read those few verses about the benefit of hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in the beginning of these reading and discussions. We are reading from the second canto, from the first canto, second chapter. But it's very important that Śrīla Prabhupada quotes many of these same verses in his Bhagavad Gita when he described the process of bhakti, the authorized process of devotional service. There is no shortcut, there's no magic bullet of how one can make progress in the science of Bhagavat, of Bhagavatam. It is a simple process. It is given by the grace and mercy of the Acharya. That's why these great Acharyas come in this world to give relief to the conditioned souls by presenting the message of the personality of God in the form of Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and to make practical arrangements according to time, place, and circumstances so that the living beings who are conditioned in this world can get relief from the cycle of birth and death. How does that work? This is explained in this verse. If one gets connection with the spiritual energy of the Lord, then one can get relief from the material energy. We've been studying the Bhagavad Gita every week for almost a year and a half, and there are so many verses which explain the unique position of Krishna and devotional service to Krishna. There are so many letters that Prabhupada wrote, so many instructions given in his books, why it is beneficial for everyone to take up the process of bhakti. We have to get bhakti from a bhakta to reach Bhagavan. Bhakta means Shuddha Bhakta, pure devotee, unalloyed pure devotee, completely liberated pure devotee, like Śrīla Prabhupada. This is very important. We see in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita how Lord Krishna explains what happens if one hears the Bhagavad Gita and understands Krishna's position. This is a very important verse which was cited by Śrīla Prabhupada many, many times. Janma karma chami divyam evam yo veti tatvataha Tyaktva punarajanma naiti mam iti sorjana, from chapter 4, text number 9. Śrīla Prabhupada nicely explains in the purport, in the first paragraph, but the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body, and does not run the risk of returning again to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the Lord has many, many forms and incarnations. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, there is still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers, as stated in the Vedas. We see in the Brahma Samhita, our Lord Brahma explains that the process of understanding Krishna, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, santa sabe sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti, yam shyama sundara machintyu guna swarupam, govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. That one time Śrīla Prabhupada was asked, well, can you show me God? Do you see God? So many questions were presented to His Divine Grace. And on one occasion, Prabhupada quoted that verse from Brahma Samhita. It says, when your eyes are smeared, premanjana. Anjana is what the ladies put under their eyes to try to beautify the eyes. But this anjana described in the Brahma Samhita is different. It's called premanjana. If one has developed love for Krishna, prema anjana, bhakti, and in devotional service, in pure unalloyed devotional service, then one can see. In another place in the Brahma Samhita, it is described, durlabam adurlabam atma bhakto, that Krishna is very difficult to see, to understand for those who are non-devotees. But adurlabam atma bhakto, he is not difficult to understand for those who are atma bhakto, confidential devotees. This is the same message which is given by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in this chapter 4, text number 9. This is very important. Prabhupada quotes here in the last paragraph a verse in Sanskrit from the Purusha Sukta. The Purusha Sukta is a very special hymn in the Vedas. It's in all the Vedas, in the Rig Veda, in Taittiriya Upanishad, the Krishna Yajurveda. What it basically means is that anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the Supreme, or who says unto the Lord, you are the same Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is certainly liberated instantly. And consequently, his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection. And this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion. Tameva vititva timrityumeti nanya panta vidyate ayanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no alternative. In Sanskrit, it's by the word na anyaha panta. There is no alternative, because anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance. Consequently, you will not attain salvation. Yesterday, we were discussing an incident that took place in Bombay, India in 1972 in December, when Śrīla Prabhupada was a guest of one very influential Indian gentleman named Kartiketya Mahadevya. He was a big manager for the Mafatlal group of companies in India, a very big industrial conglomerate. And he had a beautiful apartment, very large apartment, right on the waterfront in Bombay. So Prabhupada was there, and so many guests were coming to see Śrīla Prabhupada. And what happened is one Indian gentleman who was with a different religiosity affiliation, he started to challenge Prabhupada how we do not accept Krishna as God. And Prabhupada said, well, if you do not accept Krishna as God, why don't you describe here who is God? What does he do? What does he look like? What are his qualities? What are his activities? Of course, the gentleman could not describe anything except some sentimental ideas. And Prabhupada said, that is the problem. You do not accept Krishna, but then you cannot explain what is God. But Krishna himself explained in the Bhagavad Gita. That chapter 4, text number 9 is very important. We've often discussed the story of Jayananda, how Jayananda departed his body in Los Angeles in May of 1977. He had been suffering from a pretty aggressive terminal cancer. And at the end of his life, he was listening to the Maha Mantra, chanting the Maha Mantra, listening to Śrīla Prabhupāda. When the report was given to Śrīla Prabhupāda in Vrindavan, I remember I was in the room at that time, and Prabhupada was having a discussion with one of his godbrothers, who was a disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. This was O.B.L. Kapoor. He was a big Sanskrit scholar, a very nice devotee. And every time Srila Prabhupada would come to Vrindavan, this devotee would come and see him, and they would have all kinds of fascinating discussions. Many times they would speak in Hindi, with all kinds of Sanskrit being spoken, Bengali quotations, and Prabhupada very mercifully would speak English at different times so that we could try to understand what he was saying. So in this instance, Prabhupada quoted that verse from Bhagavad Gita, this chapter 4, text 9, and when he heard that he had heard the Maha Mantra and was reciting the Maha Mantra at the time of death, Prabhupada, he went back to Godhead and he quoted this verse. And Prabhupada started to cry. There were tears on his face. Prabhupada was very emotional. He was very happy to say that he went back to Godhead. So, because sometimes devotees will ask, have there ever been examples of different devotees who did some service in Prabhupada's mission and who actually went back to Godhead? Well, Jayananda was probably the foremost example of that. And there was another devotee named Sudama Maharaj. In 1970, Śrīla Prabhupada wanted to send somebody to Tokyo, Japan, to start the movement there. So what Śrīla Prabhupada did is he requested one of his personal servants to go to Japan. And this personal servant told Śrīla Prabhupada, well, I would rather stay here with you, Śrīla Prabhupada. I'm very happy here. Prabhupada said, that is all right. And when Sudama heard that Śrīla Prabhupada wanted somebody to go to Japan, he went to Prabhupada and says, I'll go to Japan for you. Just let me know what you want me to do, and I'll go. So he volunteered to Śrīla Prabhupada. And the day before he was supposed to leave for the airport, Prabhupada personally embraced him, gave him a hug, and he told him, for you volunteering to go to Japan to start the mission of Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself will come to you at the time of death and take you back to Godhead. Now, this was in 1970. In 1994 in Los Angeles, Sudama was departing his body, and he was surrounded by devotees. He had a poster of Prabhupada on the ceiling so he could fix his mind on Prabhupada. He was hearing the Maha Mantra, devotees that put Ganges water on his head, sandalwood paste, Tulsi. He was completely surrounded by the holy name, by Śrīla Prabhupada. And as predicted by Śrīla Prabhupada, he did go back to Godhead. So this is not just an empty promise, some exaggeration. It can take place for any devotee. Very important point. Now, what is the condition? Krishna explains, Evam yo veti tatvataha. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attain my eternal abode. Now, when we see the language that Prabhupada is explaining here in text number 35 in the first paragraph, Prabhupada explains, it is described by the great sages for the same purpose as self-realization. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita by the Lord that his so-called birth in the material world and his activities are all transcendental. And simply on meditations on such activities of the Lord, one can attain the same realization of Brahman and thus become liberated from the material bondage. Now, somebody may say, oh, just like in India, yeah, I know Krishna was born in Mathura, very nice. And then somebody will say he knows that and do all nonsense. No, what this implies is that somebody takes up the process of devotional service. If someone understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his activities are all transcendental, then he should engage in the service of Krishna under the direction of the bona fide Acharya. Now, this is very important because sometimes there is a class of devotees who think they can say anything, do anything, all kinds of nonsense, and think, oh, I'll still go back to Godhead. Well, you might, but the general process is to follow the instruction of the Acharya, the bona fide Acharya. And by following these instructions, one can be elevated to the mode of goodness and eventually to the mode of pure goodness, Vasudeva Sattva. The mode of goodness in the material world is often contaminated by the mode of passion and ignorance. This is described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. But by following the instruction of the Acharya, of the bona fide spiritual master, eventually we can be raised to the exalted position of Vasudeva Sattva, where there's no more contamination of any of the modes of material nature. And this is the mercy and kindness of Śrīla Prabhupāda, how he's introduced so many spiritual practices so we can keep our life purified, we can keep our connection with Krishna. Starting with the chanting, especially for those who are initiated devotees, to chant 16 rounds, follow the various principles, hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Śrīmad-Bhāgavad Gita, worshiping the deity, worshiping Tulsi. When we really analyze all these different activities, we see in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, how Śrīla Prabhupada is describing there are 5 basic, most important activities: to chant the holy name, to worship the deity, to hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, to live with devotees, and to live in a holy place. There's so many, they're principal main activities. And this is what Śrīla Prabhupada has given. When we analyze what he's given with the Tulsi worship, the hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Bhagavad Gita, engage in chanting Hare Krishna, engage in worshiping the deity, this is very important. This is how we obtain the grace and mercy of Lord Krishna. Just yesterday, we were discussing a very famous verse from the Mahabharata when Draupadi was subjected to the offenses and blasphemies of the Kurus. When Dushasana and Karna wanted to see Draupadi naked, they wanted to strip her naked in the assembly of the Kurus and the Pandavas after the Pandavas had lost their kingdom, all their weapons, and they eventually betted their wife and lost. And there's a verse where Draupadi is describing Pratignatava Govinda Name Bhakta Pranashyati Iti Samsmritya Pranam Sandarayamyaham. That my dear Lord Krishna, Pratignatava Govinda, you have promised, Name Bhakta Pranashyati, that your devotee will never perish. Your devotee will always be protected. And then she says, iti samsmritya, that I remember this again and again. Pranam sandaryam, thus I maintain my life. And as everybody knows, the story in the Mahabharata, although the wicked Kurus tried to disrobe Draupadi, Krishna gave her unlimited sari. They tried to, every time they would try to pull the sari, more sari would come out. More sari was given and provided by Lord Krishna. Name bhakta pranasyati. We've actually seen this. When devotees used to go on Sankirtan, there were so many instances where various inimical elements, sometimes the police, sometimes some ruffians or gundas would attack the devotees. We had one experience in Salt Lake City in 1970, late in the year. We went there, and within about 4 or 5 minutes, we were arrested, put in a police car, put in jail. Because as everybody knows, that city is controlled by a certain denomination, religious denomination. They had never seen devotees before. They thought we were looked from Mars or something. So they put us in jail. They didn't know what to do with us. So finally, one of the devotees, Patraka, told the police officer, you have to call the temple president in Los Angeles, and he will explain to you what we're doing. Because we are chanting the name of God. We're not doing anything. We're not causing any disturbance. So they called Korandar, and Korandar called the mayor of the city to educate him a little bit about Lord Chaitanya's movement, the chanting of Hare Krishna. Because what happened is that we were chanting in the jail loudly, and the police had never seen this before. Usually when you put people in jail, they're sulking, they're very depressed, they're upset. This time we were chanting the whole time. We kept chanting. So eventually, after an hour, the police, they opened the door and says, you're free to go. Everything okay, free to go. But this is an example. I know in Australia, I've spoken to Balaram Prabhu in Australia, and he was describing similar incidents of so much harassment by the devotees. But we experienced every time Krishna would protect. Vishwakarma has so many stories in Toronto, Canada, of very similar incidents, where there were harassment by police, government authorities, or even some so-called devotees who embarrassed and put another devotee in great difficulty by planting a gun in the temple. But some way or other, Krishna saved the situation. Krishna is very merciful. All we have to do, take shelter of his holy name. The example of Draupadi is a perfect example of that. The example of Śrīla Prabhupāda in New York, all the austerities, all the difficulties that he went through, he was perfectly steady, never disturbed, never upset, never angry at anybody. He just kept doing his service, kept the chanting, kept the preaching. And this is a perfect example for all of us. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Glories to Śrīla Prabhupada and the Sankirtan mission that he started in the West in 1965. September 19th, actually, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, he got off the boat in New York Harbor and undertook his adventure to spread Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada explained to us that one can become Krishna conscious in a moment, or it may take millions of years. It is simply a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. So what is the understanding that Prabhupada is speaking? First, that we are not these misconceptions related to bodily identification, which is so much prevalent, especially in the Western world. People in illusion identify themselves by a particular nationality. I'm American. I'm a Canadian. They could think I'm an East Indian. I'm rich. I'm poor. I'm good looking. This is the wrong identification of the self, as we all know. In order to liberate ourselves from these misconceptions, as it was explained today in these verses and purports, we have to learn the science of Krishna consciousness. Going back to the verse, text 34, if, however, the illusory energy is subsided and becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then the living entity becomes enlightened with self-realization, and thus enriched, the cognizant becomes situated in his own glory. So here in the purport, I thought it was very relevant. Down the page, the example of electricity. And the very same energy that acts to help the purified living being to make progress on the path of self-realization. So electricity, Prabhupada explains, the example of electrical energy is very appropriate in this connection. The expert electrician can utilize the electrical energy in both the case of heating, and cooling process by adjustment only. So similarly, the external energy, which now bewilders the living being for continuation of repeated birth and death, is turned into internal potency by the will of the Lord to lead the living being to eternal life. When a living being is thus graced by the Lord, he is placed in his proper constitutional position to enjoy spiritual life. And I wanted to give the example, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, of how Prabhupada demonstrated this in Toronto. In 1975, we had a small building on Gerrard Street which was housing about 50 devotees. It was a 3-story house. In Cabbagetown, which was a lower part of the city. And we had a desire to get a facility that could accommodate the full-time members of the temple, as well as an expanding congregation, because Toronto was developing an East Indian community, which was new to Canada. Now there's 1.7 million East Indians in Canada. But back then it was very rare. There were hardly any East Indian people in Canada. For example, in Hamilton, we couldn't even find one. We would look around. Where's there an East Indian person? Maybe they can teach us about yoga. But at any rate, we wanted to get this temple. So we had been searching for a temple throughout the area. And we came across this building up, as I mentioned, from the Parliament buildings. I wish I had the picture here of us visiting the temple with Śrīla Prabhupāda himself, because he came to Gerrard Street to visit us, and then during his visit, we arranged for him to see this building that we had found on Avenue Road, just down from Forest Hill, which is one of the most exclusive areas, and Upper Canada College in Canada. So we went there, and the church had been originally owned by Charles Templeton and Pierre Burton, who were two prominent personalities in Canada back then, anyway. And they had started a church called the Missionary Alliance. And it was a Christian church. It was quite grand. I mean, compared to what we had, it was in another realm. But at any rate, we went ahead and Prabhupada came, he took his cane. There's a picture of us, like I said, out front of the temple. And we had a group of us with him, Jagadish and Angsu from Ottawa and Uddhama Shloka and myself and a group of devotees that accompanied Prabhupada. Now, when we got there, the Christian director saw us. He was in shock. Like you said, he thought we were like from another world. He had never really understood what Hare Krishna was. And then all of a sudden we appeared, not only us, with Prabhupada himself. So we went around the church. Prabhupada went methodically through each building and tapped and looked at the building carefully, and he liked it. He thought, okay, let's buy the church. So we went back, and he was staying on Pembroke Street, which was in a slum apartment, bachelor apartment. He wanted to stay with us because he preferred to be with the devotees, not stay at the Royal York Hotel. We were going to arrange that for him because we didn't have accommodation. At any rate, we were meeting with him in his apartment. We were sitting there, all of us, and he was talking back and forth. At the time, Yaśodā was trying to buy the Fisher Mansion in Detroit and simultaneously the Toronto Temple. So he thought, okay, let's buy the temple. And he said, let's make an offer to them for $300,000. They were asking $450,000. So Prabhupada, it was a lowball offer, $300,000. And he called Romeshwar on the phone, and we were in the room with him, and Prabhupada asked him, how much money do we have in the BBT? And Romeshwar said, we have $300,000 available. He goes, okay. He told Jagadish, make up an offer them $300,000. Now, when they saw the offer, they rejected it. And I've told the story before. They said they'd rather burn it down than sell it to the Hare Krishnas. Okay. And the Prabhupada looked at us at a future meeting. He said, well, we made an offer. They said, no to the $300,000. And so what could we do? He goes, how much money do you have? And Uddhama Shloka, who was the president at the time, said, well, we don't have any money. We said, well, how are you going to buy a church when you have no money? So like that, the idea was dropped. There's a lot more to the story. It went on for a whole year after Prabhupada left. But the point is this, that Prabhupada, whatever money he had, he was prepared to use it in Krishna's service. This is the point. It's not that you accumulate wealth for personal ambition or personal glory. Everybody's after money, no question. And lots of people have hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars. It's extraordinary how much wealth there is in the world. But if we only think it's my money, it's for me only, that it's only meant for my sense gratification, this will not be a source of liberation for us. And money, women and wealth are two very difficult things for all of us to overcome. Very difficult. And the fact of the matter is, until we develop this understanding that everything belongs to Krishna. Nirmama, nothing is mine. When you're on your deathbed, what are you going to take with you? I talk to Joe Felice commonly about that. He's in the money business here in Hamilton. And his answer is, you can't take anything with you. Zero. It's the end of the journey in this body. You're finished. And the only thing you'll take with you is the karma that you accumulate while you're here in this material world, ignorant of the fact that we're the eternal servants of Krishna. Nirmama, nothing is mine. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, please. And we're going to call upon after Paranjana, Janaspriya, Ram Raghava, and Dharma Bhavana to comment. But Yaśoda, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll try to keep this brief. Basically, it's a very important purport on what you're talking about. This is from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 1, text number 10. Canto 8, Chapter 1, text number 10. Prabhupada describes in the purport, we should not fight amongst ourselves to take more than we need. As Narada said to Maharaj Yudhishthir, Yavad Bhrityeta Jataram, Tavat Statvam Hidehinam, Adhikam Yo Abhimanyeta, Sastena Dandam Arahati. One may claim proprietorship to as much wealth as required to maintain body and soul together. But one who desires proprietorship over more than that must be considered a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. This is a citation from Bhagavatam 7:14-8. Of course, we need to be maintained in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Ahar nirdabhaya maitunam cha. But since the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, has provided these necessities of life for the birds and bees, why not for mankind? There's no need for economic development. Everything is provided. Therefore, one should understand that everything belongs to Krishna, and with this idea, one may take prasada. However, if one interferes with the allotments of others, he is a thief. We should not accept more than what we actually need. Therefore, if by chance we get an abundance of money, we should always consider that it belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Krishna Consciousness, we are getting sufficient money, but we should never think that the money belongs to us. It belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should be equally distributed to the workers, the devotees. No devotee should claim that any money or property belongs to him. If one thinks that any portion of property of this huge universe belongs to anyone, he is to be considered a thief and is punishable by the laws of nature. Devi Yesha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Duratyaya. No one can surpass the vigilance of material nature or hide his intentions from material nature. If human society unlawfully claims that the property of the universe, either partially or wholly, belongs to mankind, all of human society will be cursed as a society of thieves and will be punished by the laws of nature. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
I see that we have a question. We'll be able to take the questions at the end of the discussion, no problem. But I'm going to call upon Tim Lee, or Paranjana, excuse me, brother, and let him share his realizations and understandings of today's verses and discussion. Paranjana, Prabhu.
Haribo, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Prabhupada, he says that as soon as we identify Krishna's property as our property, we're thieves. So even on a very minuscule basis, if I just think my house is mine, then I'm already a thief. So, but there's bigger and larger thief. You know, people think this is my country. That's taking even a bigger chunk of Krishna's property. So, like that. But Prabhupada makes some comments about the wars that go on amongst the human society. He said in Bombay in 1972, he said, just like in India, in the Hindu-Muslim fight, the Muslims were keeping weapons within the mosques. You know that. Everyone knows that.
Mhm.
So they are so many international law fighting, but when there is necessity, they neglect all the international law and they take advantage. So we see that going on, you know, perpetually with this group. They always have weapons. They're always using their weapons, and they think they're on a jihad to make their religion the supreme religion because they believe they They own everything. They own other people. They own the whole planet. And so it's just illusion. And then in another conversation, 1975, Jai Tirtha says, so the wars and the crime are a direct result of the cow slaughter. Śrīla Prabhupada, oh yes, it is wholesale reaction. All these crises are taking place. They are killing their own child. Own child means that child is a criminal. Therefore, the child is being killed within the womb. Nature will take action. Prakriti kriyamani gunai karmani sarvasa.
Mhm.
You are not independent. So if you work independently, you will have to suffer. That is a law of nature. You cannot avoid it. If you infect some disease, you must suffer from that disease. You cannot avoid it. That is the law of nature. Law of nature is working in such a way that as you are infecting karana guna sangha asat janma yonishu, find out this verse, why there are varieties of life. One is a tree, one is a cat, one is a dog. One is a human being, one is blind, one is lame, one is educated, one is foolish. Why? Why different varieties? All that is answered in the Bhagavad Gita. Karna guna sangosya. You are infecting the modes of material nature, and therefore you are getting your birth. Otherwise, how can you explain by nature? There's so many varieties of life, 8,400,000 species of life. So anyway, this is very important that we understand that. And as we see in ISKCON, the leaders, they claim to be free of possession, but then they possess their female secretary, or they possess a big house or a big car, or so they're still obviously materially attached while claiming to be, on the supreme platform. So one of the things that's come up recently, some of my discussions with people is, how did everything go so bad in ISKCON so quickly? And what I explained was, you become what you worship. You become what you worship. So if someone is saying God's successor is a debauchee, a drunk, a predator, a pedophile, then that is the same. I mean, every day we're singing, the Guru is Sakshat Hari. He is the same as God. We sing that every morning in the temple.
Mhm.
And then they give a class, and in the class they say, yeah, he's Sakshat Hari, therefore he's a pedophile, he's a predator, he's a drunk, he's a debauchee. Well, then that would make God a debauchee. If the Guru is the same in quality as God, and the quality of the Guru is that he is a debauchee, then God is a debauchee. So that this is making people have a misunderstanding of God. And if God is a criminal and a debauchee, then I'm authorized to be a criminal. And that explains why ISKCON became infested with criminals and debauchees. Because you become what you worship. But and I was recently interviewed by Peacock TV. I'll be on Peacock TV on October 24th. And you can get a free subscription to Peacock, so you'll be able to watch it. They have a 7-day trial. And I'm pretty sure that the show will be on the trial. But, a number of devotees right away complained, well, Pranjan, why are you going on the Demons TV show? Well, because if I don't go on and they're interviewing the ISKCON people, then our side of the story won't be heard. We can't just let their side be heard only. So yeah, they're demons or whatever you want to say about them, but they did allow me to speak. They interviewed me for 3 separate interviews. They interviewed me here once, then they said, oh, that wasn't enough. They did a follow-up. Then they said, well, wait a minute, we got to fly you to LA. So they flew me to LA, and so I don't know, they have like 4 to 6 hours of hearing stuff from me. So we'll see how much of that works out in the show. But anyway, that's in a nutshell what I explained. I said, you become what you worship. So right away, ISKCON was worshiping degraded people, materially infected people, just like Prabhupada says, infection, the infection of material. So if ISKCON is worshiping material beings, ISKCON will be infected with material, everything, and it will suffer the law, like Prabhupada said, the law of nature. The law of nature, you can't resist it, you can't oppose it, you can't challenge it. If you're worshiping the wrong thing, you'll get the wrong result every time.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I see that Ram Raghava is with us on the call today. Prabhu, could you share your insights in how one can get out of this conditioned state of existence because of the influence of Maya?
Hare Krishna.
Glories to Prabhupada.
Glories to Prabhupada.
You're
My
cooking.
obeisances to everyone. Yeah, Eunice and I are in the kitchen cooking and listening to the class.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Something that I thought of was earlier, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu was talking about, and you also were talking about the determination of Śrīla Prabhupada, how he remains steady in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Many times we can see the example when the non-devotees present obstacles to devotees. That's difficult, but it's even more difficult when other devotees present obstacles. And I believe you can correct me with the exact wording, but Prabhupada mentioned how his godbrothers gave him so much trouble. I believe he worded it that they only gave him suppression, repression, and depression. But still, he stayed steady in the service to his spiritual master. So that's an example of how much determination he had and how steady he was, that even his godbrothers were giving him problems, but he still did not waver in serving his spiritual master. So I just thought of that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes. And you know something, Prabhu, it's interesting. If we just remain focused on our Krishna conscious practice every day, then these problems will go away. What if it doesn't kill you? There's a saying, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. And so the goal of our group is to encourage everyone to become stronger in their spiritual practice. Jonas Priya, is your microphone working in Hawaii? Are you there?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Haribol, Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Could you share your realizations with us, young man?
Yeah, Prabhupada is so amazingly merciful to have come to give us this knowledge. No Prabhupada, no Krishna. Just imagine if Prabhupada did not come, I think a lot of us will be either in prison or dead or who knows what. But by his unlimited mercy, he gave us an opportunity. Just like when Prabhupada gave me second initiation personally, and he put a thread on me.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, this does not make you a Brahmana, but it gives you the opportunity to become a Brahmana.
Mm.
So this is very important. Prabhupada has given us everything we need, everything. That's his business. He's in the business of rescuing fallen souls from the ocean of nations. So he's given us everything we need. Now it's up to us to choose, yes, I want to stay, at least I want to give it my best shot. That's what else can we do, right? We cannot project beyond our ability,
Yes.
knowledge. So within our reality, we have to try our best, our very best. It's just like, I remember as a kid, close to Christmas, and walking with my parents, and I saw this beautiful toy in the store, and I wanted it so bad. And I said, I need to have this. And I started throwing a tantrum, and I kept it up, and they got it for me. So in the same way, we have to be for devotional service and for spreading Krishna consciousness. We have to become like possessed by this pioneering spirit.
Yes.
The pioneer spirit has this practically disappear for most devotees. They're just happy to be at home watching TV, and they chant their rounds when they watch TV, and they can offer their prasadam, sometimes not. There's so many people like that. I've been there, you know, but if we have any intelligence left, we have to realize that our time is so limited.
Mm.
And I tell my devotee friends, I said, if you cannot be a good devotee, at least don't be a bad devotee. Don't wear a sika neck beads and go out there and do all kinds of nonsense. No, you know, but we should really, really try to be the best devotee we can be. If we could put a smile on Prabhupada's face, then immediately Krishna says, okay. And we're done in the material world. If you could please a pure devotee, you're done with the material world. So this should be our aim. How could I please Śrīla Prabhupada today? Maybe by giving a book to somebody. Like Prabhupada said, you might be all nonsense. So, but my books are not. So you just give one of these books to somebody, and then they will get the benefit, and you will get the benefit. And the nice thing about talking about Krishna and the philosophy is that we actually are preaching to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We go, wow, did I really say that? So this is amazing, and it's all Prabhupada's mercy. We just have to keep on trying, and Maya's going to be there always offering us a 2-for-1 deal. But no, we know that we've been given this opportunity, and really, don't be stupid. Just go for it. Give it your best shot. Hare Krishna.
Very, very interesting. Very well spoken. Dharma Bhavana. And then we'll move to our question. Dharma Bhavana in Texas. Anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, trying to unmute here. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank
I
you.
was just thinking how the beautiful class today. I appreciate all the devotees' input. Surely we're blessed by being part of the Lord Chaitanya's Leela.
Yeah.
And someone may say it's taken many, many years for devotees to become somewhat organized or get together for Zoom programs. And unfortunately, I always want the devotees to come together, all the Prabhupada Nugas. And slowly, it seems to me we're just about on the verge of a time where the whole world will be changing, maybe even a big war or something like that. And all of Prabhupada's recommendations for us to be involved in simple living, high thinking, varnashram, and self-sufficiency are going to be forced upon us. So but by these Zoom programs, our devotee association seems really beautiful and wonderful and strong. But hopefully there can be some kind of project sometime where we can really work together and apply all this kind of philosophy and beautiful thinking. And we were talking about today how the different Peacock programs, different things are happening one after another, either books coming out, more media programs. It seems like Krishna's really wanting devotees to become more leaders like we're supposed to be as Prabhupada Nugas. That's all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Well, we are stepping forward, and I was thinking on my morning japa walk today that we have to write a plan out of action moving forward. If you fail to plan to fail. And we are working on a variety of projects, brother. We really are. And you're more than welcome to join us on our Thursday night meetings, which is an organizational group, a PDA media team meeting, where we do discuss these plans and how we can move forward to come together. as a group in real time.
Okay.
We have Balaram in Turkey. Prabhu, you've had your hand up patiently. What's your question? Or
Hare
com-
Krishna.
or your
Nice
comment.
nice to see you, wonderful devotees. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, on your class, I want to ask a question. I just put the text from the purport on the chat for everybody to see, and it says here, as a matter of fact, the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his different activities are all confidential, even to the Vedic literatures. So I'm going to ask one question from that one, and then the last part of that purport, Prabhupada said, we should always take advantage of the narrations of the activities of the Lord, which are meditations on Brahman in the most convenient and palatable form. So I have two separate questions. First one is, if these pastimes of the Lord are confidential to the Vedic literatures, so where should we read where should we hear and meditate upon these pastimes from? What books are being given to us for us? Because we all, I mean, directly I want to ask, because we often hear you can't go to the books of Goswami. So are we limited to the CC and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? That's the first question. Second is this one. It seems like Prabhupada is being very flexible to say meditations on Brahman in the most convenient and palatable form. Is Prabhupada being flexible enough to allow people to meditate on Lakshmi Narayan or Varaha and the Shringa according to each person's individual relationship? Or is he really trying to take everyone back to Goloka Vrindavan? That's the two questions. Thank you.
Okay, one of the points here with regards to the Vedic literature, in the Vedas, it's not so easy to understand Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita, it is described, Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhaktu, that to understand Krishna by study of the Vedas is very difficult. In the Vedas itself, in the Katha Upanishad, it is described, na bahuna shrutena, that even though one may be a great scholar in all the four Vedas, one cannot understand the Supreme Brahman like this. It can only be understood when the Supreme Brahman, Krishna, reveals himself. And how is that? This is explained there, that these meditations on Krishna are available principally in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavad-Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Now, the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam had the description of all the activities of Krishna. This is a very, very important book. Very important. When Prabhupada was having a conversation with George Harrison, they were discussing the Krishna book, and Prabhupada said, this is the most important book. So, you know, this is a matter of devotees. In this Sampradaya, the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the emphasis is on Radha Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, and developing that relationship. But if one has attraction for any of the other forms of Krishna, Narayana, Lakshmi Narayana, Varaha, Narasimha, that's as long as it is Vishnu Tattva, that is bona fide. It is not that somebody can say, oh, it's not bona fide because it's not Radha Krishna. As a matter of fact, there's a conversation with Prabhupada about this exact topic, and Prabhupada says, no, it is all transcendental. When you become liberated, whether you go to Vaikuntha or Goloka, it is all transcendental. It's not that one thinks, oh, this is better, this is lesser, this is more, this is less. It's not like that. This is a material conception. That's why a devotee, as one becomes more spiritually advanced, as one becomes more spiritually cognizant of his relationship with Krishna, which will be revealed, by the way, because there is a tendency from a certain class of devotees, they'll say, well, you have to go to a special class of Rasika devotees who are expert in Ragamarg, expert in all this Siddha Swarup and all this. This is not what Prabhupada taught. You know, Prabhupada taught us that if we follow these principles, chant the rounds, follow the process that he's given, we will go back to Godhead. That's chant the round without offenses. So this is the instruction of Śrīla Prabhupada. But some of these people say, oh, this is not enough. You need more. You need to go get a special advisor, a Rasika advisor. No. This is not what Prabhupada recommended. As a matter of fact, Prabhupada discouraged people from going outside to various neo-mats and various kind of so-called specialists because they get misled. Prabhupada has given us everything. Just like in this purport here, when you read this, we should always take advantage of the narrations of the activities of the Lord, which are meditations on Brahman in the most convenient and palatable form. If somebody tries to study the Vedas, a lot of times they'll get confused. If they don't study the Vedas under proper guidance, they'll get confused, and many times they'll get polluted by Mayavad philosophy, impersonalist philosophy. But if somebody hears the Krishna book from Śrīla Prabhupāda, assuming it's not an adulterated book, and then they'll get all the benefit, the transcendental benefit. That's what I can humbly suggest.
Glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda, and thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of the program. We actually went over a bit today. It was so engaging, and I hope all of us appreciated the opportunity to associate with bona fide disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. And I want to remind you all, you can go to the Krishna Consciousness Movement YouTube page to catch any past classes or any points that you wanted to hear in our broadcasts. We have over 125 broadcasts that you can attend, and we're building that. Next year we'll have over 200. So step by step, and we have our Vyas Puja book that we've produced. It's so beautiful. It'll be available on Amazon within the next 2 weeks. So we'll keep you posted on that. And there is a festival in Sacramento on November 12th at the Hare Krishna Center there, operated by Bhaktivedanta Singh. And Yaśodā-nandana will be a special guest speaker there. They've got a wonderful program, and it'll be broadcast as well on our network. Don't forget, Wednesday night.
What date is that? Which date is that?
November 12th. Okay.
November 12th, California time.
Yeah. And we'll put up the poster. It'll be ready this week, and you'll be able to see it and share it in your networks as well. And don't forget, please attend our Chaitanya Charitamrita reading on Wednesday of this coming week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Canada and America. We're having a good attendance there. Over 40 people are coming, and many more on YouTube and on other mediums to learn about Krishna consciousness from the Prabhupada Disciples point of view, Association point of view. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Vinkat Bhatta, our production chief, please bring up the chanting of Hare Krishna. Chant along for this last section, everyone. And all glories to you and your service. Haribol.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Aprakita Prabhu.